Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by BareMetalCyber.com. Let's dive in.
Living off the land is often misunderstood as a specific type of malware, but it is better understood as a way of operating. An attacker uses legitimate tools, services, and capabilities that already exist inside a system or network to perform actions that support unauthorized access. The practical problem is that the same tools may also be used every day by administrators, support personnel, developers, and automated processes. Blocking the tool outright may interrupt normal work, while allowing every use without scrutiny can leave defenders blind to abuse. In this episode, we will answer what living off the land means, why it makes malicious activity difficult to recognize, and how defenders can judge behavior without treating every administrative action as an attack. By the end, you should be able to explain the difference between a legitimate tool and a legitimate use, which is the distinction that drives effective detection and response. Living off the land means using resources already present in an environment rather than relying entirely on obvious, attacker-supplied software. Those resources may include command interpreters, scripting engines, system management utilities, remote access services, credential tools, file transfer capabilities, and cloud administration features. The tools themselves are not malicious. They become part of malicious activity when someone uses them without authorization or for a purpose that violates the organization's expectations. This is why the central distinction is not trusted tool versus untrusted tool. It is authorized behavior versus unauthorized behavior, interpreted through identity, purpose, timing, location, target, and result. The term is often confused with fileless malware or malware-free intrusion, but those ideas are not identical. Living off the land describes the use of existing capabilities, and an operation may still involve files, downloaded components, or conventional malware at other stages. The idea comes from using what is already available, instead of carrying every needed resource into the environment. In cybersecurity, the available resources are the operating system, installed applications, management platforms, trusted accounts, network services, and configuration features that support legitimate work. Built-in scripting is especially valuable because scripts can automate complex administrative tasks, collect information, change settings, and communicate with other systems. Those same abilities can be misused to gather information, launch other processes, alter security settings, or move data. A scripting engine does not know whether the person issuing instructions is an authorized administrator or an intruder using stolen credentials. It executes according to permissions and policy. Defenders, therefore, cannot assign intent based only on the presence of the tool. They must examine what the tool was asked to do, which account initiated it, what systems were affected, and whether the activity fits an approved operational purpose. Administration tools create a similar challenge because powerful functions are intentionally built for speed and reach. Centralized management can install software, change configurations, restart services, query many devices, and support users remotely. Those capabilities are necessary in a large environment, but they can also magnify the effect of a compromised administrative account. A malicious actor who gains access to an approved management channel may not need to deploy a recognizable remote control program. The existing platform may already provide communication, execution, and broad access. This does not make remote administration inherently unsafe. It means that the security of the account, the management path, and the approved workflow matters as much as the reputation of the software. Defenders should treat powerful administrative capability as controlled infrastructure, not as automatically trustworthy activity. The correct question is whether this use of the tool matches the user's role, the authorized task, and the normal scope of administration.
Remote access tools illustrate why living off the land can blend into ordinary operations. Organizations use remote desktop services, secure shells, virtual private networks, support platforms, cloud consoles, and device management services to reach systems that are not physically nearby. An attacker may attempt to use the same paths after obtaining credentials or an authenticated session. From a network perspective, the connection may use an approved service, a familiar port, and a signed application. That appearance can reduce the value of simple indicators based only on unknown software or unusual protocols. Context becomes more important. A connection may deserve attention when it comes from an unexpected location, reaches an unusual set of systems, occurs outside a user's normal pattern, or is followed by actions that do not match the user's duties. None of those facts proves malicious intent by itself, but together they can reveal that a legitimate access method is being used for an illegitimate purpose. Living off the land also takes advantage of trust decisions that organizations have already made. Security products often give signed system utilities, approved management agents, and widely used cloud services more freedom than unfamiliar executables. Application allow lists may permit them, network controls may recognize them, and users may ignore them because their names appear ordinary. Attackers try to benefit from that inherited trust. The weakness is not that the tools are defective. The weakness may be excessive privilege, weak account protection, incomplete logging, broad remote access, or an assumption that approved software always represents approved activity. This is why reputation-based detection has limits. A trusted publisher can establish where software came from, but it cannot establish why a particular person ran it. Digital signatures help verify integrity and origin. They do not convert every command, script, connection, or administrative change into a safe action. A common misconception is that living off the land leaves no evidence. It may reduce some obvious traces, especially when no unfamiliar executable is introduced, but legitimate tools still interact with accounts, processes, files, services, networks, and security controls. Those interactions can produce authentication records, process events, script logs, command line details, network connections, configuration changes, and alerts from endpoint or cloud monitoring. The challenge is that the evidence may resemble normal activity and may be spread across several data sources. One event may look harmless in isolation. A sequence can be more revealing, such as an unusual login followed by rapid discovery, remote administration, security setting changes, and access to sensitive data. Defenders gain more value by connecting events into behavior than by searching only for a single forbidden program. The absence of custom malware does not mean the absence of observable actions. Before we continue, this is a brief promotional message. This episode is brought to you by the Bare Metal Cyber Academy. The Academy provides a place for people who want to continue developing practical cybersecurity knowledge through clear, structured education. Topics like living off the land become easier to understand when you can connect tools, identity, permissions, logging, and defensive decisions instead of memorizing isolated terms. Visit baremetalcyber.com and explore the Academy to see the learning opportunities currently available. The focus is steady professional development without exaggerated promises or shortcuts. Now, let's return to how defenders distinguish routine administrative work from the abuse of legitimate capabilities.
The most useful detection approach begins with behavior and context, rather than the name of the tool. Defenders can ask whether the account normally uses that capability, whether the target system is appropriate, whether the timing matches an approved task, and whether the action was preceded or followed by unusual events. A system administrator may regularly use scripting across managed servers, while the same behavior from a basic user account may be highly unusual. A support tool may normally connect to employee workstations, but not to identity systems or sensitive databases. A cloud administrator may make broad changes during a documented maintenance window, while similar changes from a newly authenticated device may require immediate review. These comparisons depend on accurate identity data, asset roles, administrative boundaries, and change records. Without that context, defenders either miss meaningful abuse or generate so many alerts that legitimate work becomes difficult to separate from actual risk.
Process relationships can provide additional context because tools do not operate alone. A legitimate utility is usually started by a user, service, management agent, scheduled task, or another process. The relationship between those elements can show whether the execution fits an expected pattern. An approved software deployment agent launching an installer during a maintenance period may be normal. The same installer launched by an Office application immediately after a suspicious document is opened would carry a different meaning. Defenders can also examine what the process accesses, what it creates or changes, which network destinations it contacts, and whether it attempts to weaken monitoring. This is not a search for one perfect indicator. It is an effort to compare the entire chain of activity with known operational behavior. A signed system program can be part of a suspicious chain even when the program itself is genuine and unchanged. Living off the land can also make containment decisions more difficult. Removing an unfamiliar malicious file may be straightforward, but defenders cannot simply delete every built-in utility or disable every remote management service. Those capabilities may be essential for recovery, support, patching, and business operations. Containment must therefore focus on the abused identity, access path, privilege, configuration, or communication channel. A response may require disabling a compromised account, revoking active sessions, restricting administrative access, isolating affected systems, rotating credentials, or temporarily limiting a management service while the investigation continues. The correct action depends on evidence and operational impact. Treating the legitimate tool as the whole problem can lead to an incomplete response because the attacker may use another approved capability. The deeper issue is how unauthorized control was obtained and which trusted mechanisms were available for misuse. Prevention follows the same principle. Organizations reduce the opportunity for living off the land activity by limiting who can use powerful tools, where those tools can run, and what they can reach. Least privilege reduces the number of accounts capable of broad administrative action. Separate administrative accounts make routine user activity easier to distinguish from privileged work. Strong multi-factor authentication, restricted management networks, application control, script restrictions, and secure remote access policies can narrow the available paths. Detailed logging and centralized monitoring help defenders reconstruct behavior when prevention does not succeed. None of these measures eliminates the risk by itself. A control may reduce one route while leaving another available, and excessive restrictions can interfere with legitimate administration. Effective defense combines access control, visibility, operational discipline, and a clear understanding of which capabilities are truly required. Another misunderstanding is that any use of a command shell, scripting engine, or remote tool should be labeled living off the land. The term applies when legitimate local or approved capabilities are used as part of malicious activity. Normal administration is not suspicious merely because it uses the same software. The label also should not replace a precise description of what happened. Saying that an actor lived off the land may summarize the technique, but investigators still need to identify the account used, the capability abused, the actions performed, the systems affected, and the resulting risk. Precision supports better response and clearer communication with leadership. It also prevents the phrase from becoming a vague synonym for any intrusion that lacks obvious malware. The technique is meaningful because it explains how the actor operated and why conventional detection may have struggled, not because it excuses incomplete analysis. A practical way to evaluate possible living off the land behavior is to test 5 elements in plain language. Identify the capability that was used, the identity that used it, the target it reached, the action it performed, and the operational reason that should explain the activity. Then compare those facts with known roles, approved changes, normal timing, and expected system relationships. You do not need to declare every anomaly malicious. You do need enough context to decide whether the behavior is authorized, mistaken, or hostile. Record the evidence that supports that conclusion and note what remains uncertain. This method keeps the focus on behavior rather than reputation. It also helps teams tune alerts around meaningful combinations, such as unusual identity, sensitive target, powerful action, and missing business justification, instead of generating a high-severity alert every time a common administrative utility runs.
Living off the land means using legitimate tools and services already available in an environment to carry out unauthorized actions. The technique is difficult to detect because the software, protocol, account type, or management channel may look familiar and may be necessary for normal operations. Defenders cannot rely only on whether a tool is trusted, signed, built-in, or approved. They must determine whether the specific use was authorized and consistent with the identity, target, timing, scope, and expected purpose. Good defense combines restricted privilege, protected administrative paths, strong authentication, detailed logging, behavioral monitoring, and response procedures that address the compromised access rather than only the visible utility. The most important practice is to separate legitimacy of capability from legitimacy of behavior. A trusted tool can perform an untrusted action, and recognizing that difference allows defenders to investigate and respond without treating normal administration as automatically malicious.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.